Today, we'll be diving into the monochromatic dark of Limbo, a platformer about what shadow people get up to when you stop taking Benadryl. This is one of those indie games that ended up on my radar years ago, but I never bothered to play, and now I forget everything about it. From the shop page, a melancholy reeks through the screen, the header image alone seeming to be a representation of a child entering the afterlife. The short description doesn't help dissuade from this. We're entering Limbo to find our sister. My money's on the twist being that she's alive and we're dead, but I've been wrong before. Loading up, we're greeted with a simple and stylish select screen showing off the game's logo. A scene of the forest opens, a moody fog engulfing. It's very cinematic, like a dream caught on old film. We awaken slowly, rising from the ground. There's no introductory text, no tutorial, nothing to engage with. My platformer instincts tell me to go to the right in case of secrets, and I step on a glowing thing, which breaks, netting me an achievement. I practice jumping around a bit, and the movement feels alright for the story-led platformer I envision this to be. We run onward, ambience surrounding the space in place of music, a mix of wind and radio static. I slide down a cliff, jumping right into a spike pit. The sound of pierced flesh plays as I meet my end. I'd be lying if I said this didn't stun me for a moment. I wasn't expecting this to be so openly brutal. I was getting the spooky and cutesy vibe, not this. Beyond the spikes, we pull a cart to gain leverage, letting us slide down a rope and onto a platform. Curiosity kills the cat as I poke around, drowning. Clearly, I'm off to a good start. Onwards, we climb aboard a sailboat, drifting into the fog. It's very atmospheric, the shades of gray contrasting one another, and the serenity contrasting the violence we just experienced. On the far shore, we're met with a small cliff, the first puzzle of the game. While it's a simple ask, it takes me a moment before I realize I can pull the boat ashore. Standing on our vessel, we're able to scramble over the ledge. I climb a tree and a rope. I find two bear traps laying open, handles positioned with intent to pull them apart. While I move the first one fine, the second one keeps momentum after I release it, causing it to trigger, killing me. I jumped in my chair at this, the loud steel echoing in this mostly empty expanse. I'm much more careful after respawn. An infested rope is presented, no doubt the way forward, but as I get my bearings, I leap off of it and into a bear trap. Again, I jump in my chair. We move the trap under the infested rope, hoping it'll cut the weight, but again, the trap maintains momentum after movement, snapping around us. The second go, we're able to cut the weight off with the trap successfully. This is a rough opening for me, each interaction seeming to need at least 2 attempts. I'm learning quickly that slow and steady might be the move. Just as I embrace slow and steady, an Indiana Jones boulder menaces, foretold by some pebbles. I'm pretty proud of myself for picking up on this in time. I think my luck might be turning around until we come to a lake with a box where my brainlet status is confirmed. I push the box floating in the lake towards the center, trying to ride it over. I meet a watery grave. I try again, and again, and again. Straddling the box, getting a running start with it, nothing. Eventually, I pull it so far back, I realize, oh, there's a rope hanging from the tree. The solution is born as we scale the trees, pushing over a rotten trunk at the peak. I peek around a bit more up here, earning an achievement for stepping on another glowing thing. Back on the ground, I use the floating log as a stepping stone. Ahead, the horrors never cease, a bear trap sitting on a branch above us. I move under it, wary. My caution isn't earned here, but a bit beyond, a giant spider blocks our path. It lunges for us, but we dodge. We backtrack, hoping it'll follow us to the trap, but it doesn't. Curious, I get too close, and the spider pierces us, flinging the body of poor Carmen Winstead around. I have named the boy Carmen Winstead. He is very similar to you.
Hi, my name is.
Revived, I bait the spider just to be an asshole, but the force from the spider's legs knocks the trap free, a win for our boy Carmen. On our chainmail revenge arc, we use a trap to take the spider's legs. The first two come easy enough, but it skewers us on the third, a lesson in greed. Round 2, we claim the 3 legs we can, the spider fleeing after. We're in the clear until we aren't. The spider returns as we get bogged down in some webbing, wrapping us up Frodo style, or Lara Croft style. This seems to happen to a lot of people. When it goes, we swing, knocking the cocoon down. Hopping along, I fall in a pit and get crushed by a log. Truly, I have to do everything in this game at least twice. I hop onto a rolling boulder, scooting backwards in time to keep it pushing. Our spider, who I named David, reappears. I keep a steady pace, more worried about falling off. I clear it just as David swings for us, making this the first complex movement I survived in one go. Freed from the cocoon, Carmen Winstead now sports a cool hairpiece. A body sits slumped, but when we go to investigate, the floor breaks, the body hanging. It's now that I realize what the vibe is reminding me of. Scary stories to tell in the dark. The Shades of Grey are very evocative of those books, and I really dig it. I pass through a platforming section, almost acing it, but I get spooked by a wrecking ball. I then get spooked again by David's legs, only to realize it's a fake. This is delightfully clever, and I'm glad to have fallen for it. I hope the game offers more playful moments like this. I clear the legs and another boy runs off. Further up, more roll flaming tires at me, there's more spike traps. These boys suck. No wonder Carmen Winstead haunts us all.
Did I mention to you that I'm dead?
Who they are or how we ended up enemies is unknown, but I can only assume they're people who did not share Carmen's message, afraid of their fate. I move beyond my haters only to be met with my greatest hater. David comes up from behind, and I try to get into a boat, but miss. Next go, we use the boat to cross and get some distance. We need David's weight to seesaw the log, though when he does, the jump doesn't connect. The second time we make it, getting some more distance. At the end of the segment, we roll a boulder, smushing our greatest enemy down the sewer, Winstead style. Sliding down a hill, I'm learnedly fearful, but nothing happens. Across a pit, we see the other boys, though David is again on our heels. I try to jump away, getting spiked in the nuts. Respawned, we move closer to David, and see he's now a one-legged nugget thing. I actually feel pretty bad, like I wanted dude to die, not be crippled beyond respect. We walk across him, kind of shove him a little, play with his one arm. I try to pull him towards the pit, thinking maybe I can use his leg as a bridge, but it rips off in my hands. Maybe, just maybe, our boy Carmen isn't a good person. I push the rotund corpse of our fallen enemy, using his body as a stepping stone over spikes. Good night, David. We hit a short puzzle, just climbing up, climbing over to a box and knocking it down with body weight. The box lets us climb a cliff leading towards a lake. Here we hop across the water using the bodies of the fallen. Ahead is a wire trap, so we backtrack, grabbing a corpse to trigger it in our stead. Further on are two pressure plate traps, but they have opposite triggers, which feels very hateful. Or it does until three enemies ahead try to kill us with blow darts. Returning the way we came, the dodge traps end up being our defense, murdering for us. Truly, this is a lawless wasteland. Though it makes me wonder what separates Carmen from his enemies, or the bodies hanging around. What groups them into hunter, hunted, and haunted? Following is a puzzle that boils down to raising two weights to create a brief passage. The biggest obstacle is timing. We move a cart for future leverage, pull a rope, jump down and over the cart, pull the same rope, pull a second rope, and then pass through. It's the easiest of the puzzles in terms of concept, but I dislike it more than the others, the difficulty tied to the controls. Luckily for me, control quickly falls out of my hands, a parasitic brainworm attaching to our noggin. It marches us forward, and while attempting to go the other direction will slow it down, and we can still jump, the worm dictates direction. We slide down a hill and use a box to reach some strange xenomorph-like creatures who eat the worm off our head.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings.
I find a friendly dog thing, though it's skittish. Using mushrooms, I lure the fella out, scaring it into a big hamster wheel, creating brain. This makes me feel a little bad, like I just accidentally enslaved it. Whatever. This lets me fill up a pit I can jump across using a floating box. We hit a rising water puzzle. We prepare by pushing a box below a platform, pulling a slot open for it to eventually pass through. I look for something to block the water outlet before realizing the lever is right in my face. I honestly thought it was a discarded crutch, meant to represent trash or something. We ride the waves up to a ladder, hustling into the puzzle's second section. I drowned the first time, not really sure how to progress. The theme of puzzles you'll only understand the second go continues. We open a slot to let a flotation through, closing the slot as it bounces from a snapping momentum. We push it under a loose platform, and when the water rises, the ball floats the platform for just long enough to clear the ledge into the next area. This again leads to a water puzzle, though smaller now. The answer is just pulling the same lever twice. Further, a brainworm hangs from the ceiling, so we're back at being sheeple. This one is tricky because we have to wait for the worm to swing a bit so we have time to pull the box so Carmen doesn't fall to his death repeatedly. Box in place, we go to the left with the worm, and then the right, crossing two ladders and climbing down. The place begins to crumble as the water rises, just as the worm turns us left. This takes me a lot of tries, I just can't seem to figure it out. I see the floating platform I need to use, but it's to the right, and the worm has us going left. Eventually, I realize the worm's change in direction isn't random, it's triggered by the light. So we huff it back to the leftmost light to go right, clearing in time, eventually. I have to say, this game is generous with its respawn spots, and I'm very grateful for that. It's clear the game expects you to die a lot, and while I normally don't like death parades, the respawn spots make it much more swallowable. Most importantly, they're all placed exactly where I would place them. I'm never surprised where I pop in. We find a dilapidated city, and I'm electrocuted by a hotel sign. We jump across the HOT, releasing a rope. Turning off the Aleki, we cross the whole sign, it crumbling under our weight. We run over a glass dome. Very cool. There's a crack section near the end, and I jump on it, testing if it would actually break. I guess I have some good instincts, because we're actually supposed to use a ladder on wheels to get leverage to break this section. My instincts aren't that good, though, as I miss the platform post-break, dying. Taking a rope to the ground, I poke around a bit. The brainworm awaits, and I prepare mentally. Forced to ride the vibe, we go left, and then we go right. We do some platforming a long stretch without a change of direction. Just as I get lulled into a false security, I get sawed to death. Clearing the saw via a box, we get our worm removed. I then promptly kill myself because I thought I was supposed to go down that shaft. Carmen yearns for the fall. Autonomous again, we hit back, jumping over the saw, seesawing a platform, swinging a platform, and returning to the lift. At the lift, we move a box up and then use it to cross a little seesaw platform. I hit a lever, release a rope, and I need the box to get up here. I spend the next 10 minutes messing with the lift, even getting crushed by it, the answer eluding me. I keep trying to pull the elevator platform from the bottom, thinking it'll lift the platform up, though in hindsight that doesn't make much sense. Eventually, I get it, dragging the elevator on the upper platform so the box can be raised onto the clearing. We're then tasked with flipping a switch to lower the rope and flipping it again, grabbing the rope as it ascends. The game is starting to demand a platforming precision the controls just cannot meet, so it'll be interesting to see how this progresses or degrades. Ahead is another saw, which I hate for the noise alone. We drop one box and then stack a second, jumping over the blade and onto a ledge. In the next section, we see a freak fly on the other end of a shallow pool. We sneak up on it, and it weirdly reminds me of that internet comic. I rip his leg off, as is tradition. We hit a puzzle, though the goal isn't clear to me, so I just follow the beats. I climb up a ladder, moving two sliding platforms. I use these to transfer a tire, though why, I can't say. It falls and I realize it's to hit a trigger raising a wall, but the area is sloped, so it raises and lowers as the tire rolls. I hold it open with a box and feel accomplished. Though when I reflect on what I'm actually doing, I realize I need the box off of the ledge, not the wall held open. I push the box from the other side and use it to activate a gear. We climb up the gear, getting another box, only I'm careless and it crushes me. We get over to the lift, but I need the first box, so I have to hit back over the gear and get that. While the vibe of the forest section was very cool, I'm starting to get disenchanted here. We reach an electrified floor, having to swing on a chain, jump off, hit a button, and then jump back on. This leads us to pushing one gear into another, rotating the whole space. As gravity shifts, we platform. It leads us to a liftable wall and a magnetized box. Trying to time this, I use the box to get up, hit the button, jump off, and climb the ladder, but it feels impossible. That is, until I realize the box isn't magnetic, the floor is. After this realization, it falls into place, and we move along. There's another gravity changing section. I use a box to grab a chain and then drop onto the same box to avoid an electric floor, leaping over a saw. This leads me into a third gravity section where we use a box to make a jump, a boulder behind us. A butterfly leads us into a grassy field where a girl sits, playing. This is no doubt the sister mentioned in the game's description. As we approach, we get brainwormed, ripped from our goal, and sent back into the factory. I was kind of hoping the game was over. It's beginning to wear out its welcome. Back in the factory, we dodge pistons, eventually getting our worm eaten again. Riding up a gear to a ladder, we climb up and begin cranking a lever back and forth. This lets us time the gear directional change, using the halt and momentum for a brief platform, and the upper gear as a lift to the way forward. The timing takes me a bit, and I feel every second of this. Beyond it isn't any better. We're given a ladder on wheels, a rising electrified platform, a lever, and a cart. We pull the cart under the upper lever, then oscillate and climb the ladder, reaching the lower level lever. The ramp now electrified, we jump back to the oscillating ladder and to the upper platform. We pull the upper lever while dropping down into the cart. The cart then takes us through a dark tunnel where we jump up onto a platform while keeping timing with the cart to avoid a saw blade to return to the cart and hop off at the near end of the track. We then have to pull the cart up a slope track off a button that electrifies the way forward, running across before we get shocked. At this point, the game is overstayed. I begin to seriously ask myself if the devs considered the concept of fun while making this. I really don't think they did. I think they went for art and atmosphere and stuck fun in the wood chipper. We continue on and it's another gravity section, now in the dark. We get through this, ethereal music playing. Hoping I'm at the end of the game, I run forward and get ass blasted by machine guns. I use one gun to take out the other, and it feels like this game has lost the plot it didn't have. The forest section was scary and fairytale-like. This is just apocalypse. More gravity antics abound, growing staler by the minute. We use two boxes to get through a section, and it's not interesting, but it does suck when my head gets crushed. Making it through, we reach some grass and an elevator. I'm hoping the grass is a sign we'll be done with all the mechanical stuff soon. We're not, of course, a machine gun sitting just above and across from the elevator. I bait the gun into firing, a tall order for somebody as sluggish as Carmen Winstead. The fire releases a box, which can somehow withstand the assault. Jumping over the gun, I get another box through gravity antics.
You must bounce on it.
While this is intended for something, I can't move it back to the elevator due to the gun, so I leave it for the moment. I move to the right of the elevator with the first block instead. It blocks another gun, and at the top of the ladder, I find another anti-gravity toggle. On the ceiling, I head back for the other block. I use them both to position a staircase for myself when gravity returns to normal, though the moving platform will only get me one go. I reset the gravity and ascend just in time. This feels very underwhelming for all the work I just did. I drop down onto grass and I pray I'm done with this terrible machine section. Of course, we're not hitting a double trouble gravity and magnet section. It's not crazy just getting one block to stick to the ceiling while the other stays on the ground. We go to cart over, using momentum to grab a rope, and jump off before we get impaled. We're back at the hotel sign, which implies we've gone in a loop, accomplishing nothing. We're doing gravity antics outside now, not fun. We navigate the sign, shimmying down. I move a box with gravity, and it's extremely unfun. When I finally clear it, I get got by one of the machine guns. The gravity shifts on its own now, timed. It feels like all of my least favorite aspects of this game are converging. I make it past the two guns slowly, moving into Sawblade. If I never have to play another game with gravity, I'll be a very happy guy. The final saws require me having to hit a second gravity button mid-fall, and it takes me forever. The timing is very precise, having to wait for the right moment. When I finally do the maneuver, the game slows to a crawl, moving a frame every 10 seconds or so. As Carmen Winstead hits the finish line, he dissolves, though again, slowly. This, it turns out, is a bug. So as I go through my control panel, capping frames and hoping, the game gives me a final middle finger. In the end, I have to go into the game's text file settings and cap it there, forced to reset. I redo this final section, clearing the game as intended. Carmen Winstead returns to the forest, finally meeting up with his sister. I am free from Limbo. Out of our purgatory, we can break this game down into 4 sections. The first is the forest, our most idyllic. It has a dark fairy tale essence, and it sets the stage for the rest of the game. The major controls and mechanics are introduced, notably without direct tutorial, an asset to the game's liminal feeling. You're given no guidance and expected to fail. The lack of story, dialogue, world building all feed into this. It creates an ephemeral experience. My strongest reactions were evoked here. The gameplay has more breathing room. Our spider David and the strange boys offer themselves as a clear antagonist. Sure, some puzzles feel frustrating for a moment, mostly the deceptive box in a pool one, but overall the outcomes feel worth the input. The mystery before me felt worth unraveling, and the childlike dread tapped into familiar sources. It's a little bit Grimm's fairy tales, a little bit scary stories to tell in the dark, and a little bit Newgrounds Flash game. There's obvious potential in this. I reacted more to this first section than some other games in their entirety. The first spike, the first bear trap, the first visage of a spider leg, all of these things were masterfully effective. I jumped in my chair at these initial deaths. I felt betrayed by the first time I saw others, only for them to try and take my life. I covered my mouth in shock when I pulled off David's final leg. And the presence David possesses through this section is unparalleled. The menace blocking our path and at our back, he skulks about the land of fallen God, revered by the world's inhabitants who mimic him to ward off foes. Watching him be reduced at our hands made me feel powerful, vengeful, dangerous. Until it went too far, my greatest foe reduced to a fate beyond dignity. And as I pulled him forward, discontent to leave my struggle behind, I tore away his last influence, leaving him a literal stop along my climb. It's brutality at its most poignant, and it's the game's greatest showing, a precocial stretch of an unsustainable wingspan. It makes me wonder how many accolades were birthed here, never to be tarnished by the continued journey. It would make sense. A strong forward foot seems to do a lot. Unfortunately, the pace isn't maintained. As we leave David beneath our feet, our steps turn into a steady patterning, following into a dance named decay. The second section, characterized by water, begins to strip away at any elements that brought strength to the experience. The aesthetic changes from forest into the man made, and our enemies leave the physical, becoming conceptual. We battle time with rising waters, control with the worms, and degradation with decaying structures. The puzzles become mechanical in nature, moving from avoidance to manipulation. The world grows empty as our brow grows heavy. Just what are we after? Just what is this world? The third section transitions into gears. We explore the echo of a departed society. Machination left as the sole hostile survivor. It's been done before and after. Stories like Ray Bradbury's There Will Come Soft Rains come to mind, or Near. But this world is lacking. Simple dressing for a concept beginning to run out of steam. The machinery has no point because it was not built with design in mind. This section is tight because it never had lungs. A good design ethos should balance reality with concept. Some things must be to perform the function of being a game, so we must tie them within the created world so they don't feel alien. It's an easy point to say this section feels dissonant to lend to liminal vibes, but I don't think it lands in the correct way. Even the brain controlling worm, the remaining fragment of nature, feels more like a device than ever. Though the humor is it's used to propel the player out of a section already incapable of backtrack, so it's never been more pointless. The final section, Gravity, is the complete murder of the natural for the embrace of an alien yet boring mechanical perspective. If something so fundamental as gravity can be controlled, it paints the previous sections in a more muted hue. What is the death of a spider compared to the manipulation of space? On the counter, what does all of this unclaimed power lead to? It leads to nothing. It leads to reunion, yes, but nothing is gained and nothing is lost. No answer is presented, no question is asked. The trek itself is meandering and unformed, yet results in victory as if guided by fate. Again, this is a game, victory is assured, but as an experience, it lacks, despite the time and skill required for completion. It's like needing $100, so you go home and make a sandwich, and while eating it, somebody throws a dead bird through your window, $100 tied around its neck. And that isn't to say the ending is bad. It's exactly what I expected it to be. I'm not upset my questions about Carmen or his sister weren't answered. I'm not upset that apocalyptic lore wasn't dumped or survivor tribes weren't explored. But I am miffed over the spacing of the section of the hero's journey we follow here. We open into the special world, begin our trials instantly, walk deeper into the web, defeat the spider, and earn our reward hours later. This empty space between the actual narrative of Carmen and his reunion is where the game dies, rightfully so. The painting was vibrant, but we've used too much turpentine by the time it's gone to show. And of course, it's during this period of diluting that the actual gameplay becomes more demanding. This draws to the flaws, as the player is forced to sit in areas best not pondered upon. The gimmicks, the rising water, magnetism, gravity, momentum, all of them grow stale after introduction. Some gameplay is frankly unfair, expecting the player to have died previously to progress. This is even echoed in the achievements. It's not asking for a deathless run, it's asking for a run with 5 or less deaths. The same is true of the puzzles, the two deeply intertwine. The sound design follows a similar trajectory as the gameplay. The opening is effective, the bear trap closing evoking a shiver along my spine. Tracks are placed surrounded by gaps of silence, which works in the game's favor. But as we move into the industrial, the turning of gears and the buzzing of saws create an ugly soundscape. It's coherent and logical, but I found myself moving quickly, if only to escape the noise. I often say not noticing sound design is indicative of a good job, but here it is noticeable, and it's a good example of that duality. Overall, I would give this game a 3 out of 10. A strong start seeped in South mythos finds itself constantly eroded to the point of meaninglessness, its final capstone interrupted by a game-breaking bug. If the game ended after the final death of the spider, billed as a proof of concept or something, I would give it a 7 out of 10. But unfortunately, the extra legs of this game refuse to be ripped off, leaving us where we are. Looking at the achievement data, 30% of players beat the game on Steam, 14% on Xbox. The other achievements are for finding non progression based hidden objects, so they don't provide much for a baseline. Still, I find this impressive for a 15-year-old game with a $10 price tag that frequently drops to $1 and is on Game Pass. That's a lot of exposure and pretty high completion numbers going off of my own experience. People are finding this worth the finish, though the short completion time may play a role, in general taking 4 hours. Limbo is impressive in that it earns its laurels immediately and then proceeds to spend the next 3 hours plucking the leaves off of them, side-eyeing you all the while. There might be an argument of intent based on the game's name and that indie games, much like other non-corpo art, seem to gain the benefit of the doubt initially, but I think it is as it appears. The game is front-loaded and word and verse, it wouldn't have acquired nearly as much acclaim as it has. It goes to show the power of putting your best foot forward. Anyway, don't forget to send this to 15 people in the next 5 minutes if you don't want your fate to be the same as David's. And I'll catch you next time.
Hi, my name is Carmen Winstead. I'm 17 years old. I am very similar to you. Did I mention to you that I'm dead? A few years ago, a group of girls pushed me down a sewer hole to try and embarrass me.